Three. Hello, and we are Geeks Assembled, and us reprobates here have gathered together. Yes, you, Beef Dad. I class you as one of those. We have gathered together to discuss the 1949 Ealing comedy movie starring Dennis Price and Alec Guinness in several roles. This is Hearts and Coronets. So we will go from one to another discussing this. So we'll go opening thoughts. Seeing as Stephen Price is unmiked, we will go to him first. What's your opening thoughts on this, Stephen?
Not 7 rolls, 8. 8 rolls he done. Alec Guinness done 8 rolls. Yeah, this was. I haven't seen this movie for God knows how long. The brilliant movies like a serial killer, murdering everybody and not in a gruesome way. I like the way the court case went, and then at the end, the reporter asked him about his memoirs, and he was in the jail. Yeah, excellent from Alec Guinness. I know he died about 8 times, didn't he? Something like that he did in the movie. Brilliant actor. I love Alec Guinness. That's my opening thoughts.
Now you mentioned it, Stephen. Did you recognise who that reporter was?
I can't put a name to him. I have seen him in other movies.
You stupid boy. It was Arthur Lowe.
Oh my God. It was.
Arthur Lowe in one of his first film acting roles.
Oh my God, I didn't.
There's a bit of trivia for you.
Yeah.
We'll move over to Beef Dad now and see what he has to say.
I love this film. I mean, Dennis Price playing Louis, who decides that he wants to become, because of his mother dying and being refused the chance of being buried in the family crypt, he gets really vengeful and decides that the rest of the D'Ascoyne family need to pay for this. So he gradually kills off the 8 people, the Duke, the banker, the parson, the general, the admiral, young Ascoyne, young Henry Ascoyne, and Lady Agatha, all played by Alec Guinness. And it was just done. He just did it brilliantly. Eventually when he gets tried, by then he's the Duke of Ascoyne, and he chooses to be tried by his peers in the House of Lords, with the Lord Chancellor as judge. That was brilliant. Loved it. And I really enjoyed Mulf Madison in this as the hangman. He was really good. He was quite looking forward to it because it was the first chance he'd had to use a silk rope. It's a brilliant story, brilliantly told, superbly acted by everybody in it. And when you consider that later on, Dennis Price, he died in about 1973, I think it was, of liver disease brought on by alcoholism. But previous to that, he'd also attempted suicide. But I mean, yeah, the trouble was Dennis Price was such a good actor, but then because of his drinking, he became very unreliable. But in this, it's before, and his relationship with Sibella, played by Joan Greenwood, is just brilliant. And his mother Edith, played by Valerie Hobson. Wow, yeah, you got two of the greatest actresses of that era in this. I remember Joan Greenwood in The Importance of Being Earnest. She's superb in that. Yeah, loved it. And yeah, as you say, Arthur Lowe I think it was actually probably one of his first film appearance, because he was very, very young. I was waiting for him to say "Don't tell him, Pike," but he didn't. And yeah, there was just some brilliant moments in it. The murders themselves were just superb. It was all very, very creative and very, very clever. And one of my mother's favourite films.
Thank you for that, Dad. Yeah, what you've got to realise as well is Alec Guinness playing all these roles. He was only in his mid-30s when he was playing these roles. It just shows how diverse an actor he really was. We'll go over to the love sofa, what Alex and Susan say.
Yeah, it's that's another interesting part, not only of film school and TV school, but also of Geeks Assembled, is that we cover the wide decades. There was a lot of good movies in the 40s, especially if you're not averse, you're not against watching black and white. And there's a lot of movies, if you do your research, that basically they're still being imitated today. And there's only so many plot devices you can do. This reminds me a little bit of sort of a soap opera, a Greek tragedy. He feels that he's been wronged, and so he's going to do whatever he can, even though he's a charmer and a cad, as the women say in the movie, to kill everybody for the title. And of course, if there's any justice in the world, even though he was put on trial for the wrong death. But basically, that's an age-old theme, just like they do with soap operas, reality shows, crime drama, Spanish soap operas of all different countries. Is somebody wants something, and you're watching the story to see how they get it. Hopefully, it's not real. Hopefully, it's not all murderous. But basically, that's what he did, and that's kind of ahead of its time for 1946, with the exception of Shakespeare. Uh, you kill to get it or whatever. But it was very well acted. The sets look great. It's got a great dialogue. I mean, it feels, except for some of the English words, you could basically redo it and you wouldn't have to change too much. Not that you should anyway. But basically, you have other movies that I could mention that are basically doing the same thing. Find the murderer, find the kidnapper, whatever. And it's the same idea basically. But yeah, for a 1946 movie, it's quite advanced. It's got a shocker ending, leaves it up in the air, doesn't explain everything to the audience, as it shouldn't, because it's a movie. You're supposed to be you're in their world for a little while, and you see how it is, and you see how they act, and that's what it's not supposed to be explained, every little thing. So it's a very good movie. This has very good actors. I guess Dennis Price also got known for a 1960s version of Jeeves and Wooster that not everybody knows about, except at that time. There was a 90s version with different actors. But I always knew that he was a good actor. Alec Guinness has always been a good actor. and a good comedic actor as well before Star Wars in the 70s and 80s. And yeah, it's a very good movie. I was surprised at how deep it was, and I was surprised at how many characters they had and how well written they were.
And I really enjoy Alec Guinness's work. I love Bridge on the River Kwai. I love all the whistling and stuff in that movie. It's kind of a devastating war movie, though. And this is another one of his great movies. Is called Brother, Sun, Sister, Moon, and he plays Pope Innocence. And he's with St. Francis of Assisi, actually commissioning him to go and being humbled by him as well. So back in the day, I used to say, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only pope." Anyway, that was my joke about Alec Guinness in this movie. But yeah, I was amused that he, it could have been called The Many Deaths of Alec Guinness, because every single character that he played got poisoned, blown up, burnt alive, drowned. Let's see. First one was drowned. Second one was shot. Oh no, that was the later. That was the last one. First one was drowned. Second one was burnt. Third one was arrow. Yeah, shot with an arrow. I mean, he died so many different ways. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. And he did it with such grace. And here's Louis trying to win the affections of Sabella as a kid, as a young man, and she scorns him and goes out with this other guy. And then as he's building up to his, dukedom, he ends up tormenting her lover to death, her husband to death, until he kills himself. But then, oh my gosh, miracles of miracles, here he is, the Duke, and and she turns around and she's like, "I'm bored with this man," and so he gets to have her, and then he meets one of the Alec Guinness's wives, and suddenly she is there, accepting his hand in marriage. So this Louis guy gets all the girls and gets all the death, and he's just everywhere, he wants to be. And one of the most dramatic deaths of one of the D'Ascoyne is he's the current Duke, and he gets caught in a man trap and shot. I mean, that was just kind of like, holy schmoly, he's going to go all the way and do this. He's going to actually just blow him away. And he did. And so that was really intense. And so kind of the cool movie. And the titles, as I was telling Alex when we were watching it, were beautiful. Absolutely lovely. You could tell it was going to be a period piece because the titles were so gorgeous. Anyway, yeah, that's all I got to start with.
I'm guessing Susan liked it. Yeah, it's you can't go wrong with Alec Guinness. I wonder if he got paid 8 times over. Never, yeah, but I agree with what these dad said earlier about Dennis Price. He's a brilliant actor, and it's just a shame later life he was reduced to B movie horror movies. Some classic ones, some classic horror movies, but
He was in this in later life.
Dennis Price, I want about.
Oh, sorry, Dennis Price. You meant.
Dennis Price, yeah. Dennis Price was a brilliant actor, but as I say, shame he was reduced to B-movie horrors in the later 60s and early 70s. But there is a few classic ones what he did pick up. And the Alec Guinness, every D'Ascoyne he played brilliantly. Just for me, I wanted to see Lady Agatha more. That part of Lady Agatha, I wanted to see that battle axe more. That one seemed to be more fun. But you only saw a bit of Lady Agatha up in the balloon. It's a good Ealing comedy. Back in the day, Ealing did make good comedies, and this is one of the best. So you can't go wrong. As you say, the titles and everything, as Susan mentioned, you knew it was going to be a classic period piece, as she said, and it doesn't fail to deliver. This movie, it made comedy out of murder, which is sort of a strange subject, but it did it well. It wasn't gory, it wasn't bloody or anything like that. It just did it, and it's a wonderful movie. I enjoyed this. I haven't seen this for quite a few years now. Sat down and watched it during the week, and I remembered why I like this. Because of the cast, because of the storytelling, because of the acting. And there was never a dull moment in this for me. From beginning to end, I had a smile on my face all the way through. I wasn't laugh out loud, but it was just, enjoyment smile. So we'll open the floor now. So favourite moments, things what you would rather have changed, or if you liked it all. What about that?
There was the murders were brilliant. Well, one of my favourite moments is where he's with the vicar, and he's showing him his church. He says, "I always say my west window has all the exuberance of Chaucer, without any of the concomitant crudities of his period." Magical. I also loved the moment where he was at the service in the church, and all of the D'Ascoynes were sitting there, and as Leah said, I wish they'd done a bit more with Lady Agatha, because really speaking, it's not very far away from the first St. Trinian's movie. But yeah, he's just so brilliant in every single part. I mean, you see him playing this the ancient Duke. You see him playing the parson, who is also quite old, and the banker, who is quite old, and then all of a sudden he's playing someone who's in their 20s, and it's just absolute brilliant performances on all of them. The last moments of the film, where he's been sitting down and basically writing a diary of all the murders that he did, even though the murder, the one that he's been committed to be hanged for, is not a murder, it was a suicide by his old friend. And then he's let out, and it's not until he gets outside the doors that he realizes that he's left the confession basically on the table.
Beef Dad, I don't think Lionel was much of a friend because he stole his girl.
No, they were friends at the beginning.
I don't think so. I think that he was pretty much like,
They were still they were friends at the beginning, yes. And then they both fell in love with the same girl, and that's when it separated them. But yeah, it's very clever. It's very clever. It's brilliantly written. It's superbly performed, and even though it's in black and white, it's a real piece of cinema magic.
Feel free, anybody else who wants to
I think because it's oh, go ahead, Stephen.
I like the part when he's having a drink with one of his victims coming up and he just dies in a chair. I thought that was a very funny part.
Oh, Susan, if you want to say something.
Yeah, I think it was just a story of, you know, loving your mom, and your mom got hurt and then all this revenge, and it's also about, like, because he was so, you know, collapsed into his mother, you know, all these women were, you know, completely. I mean, you'd think that he was in charge, but he wasn't. He was completely at their mercy. Anyway, that was an interesting story, and the other stories, the stories of all the D'Ascoynes was had, you know, it was just a backdrop for the love story. But so I can see, like, yeah, there was Lady Agatha, and maybe we wanted more of her, and I personally liked the banker, and I liked the photographer. I thought that that bit was really classy, and then the one when he had to dress up and go to that club and stay there for the weekend, and then, you know, it was really interesting, all the revenge that he took. Anyway, do you want to say any more favorite bits?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, this was very well produced. It was well written. It was well acted. There's not really a favorite bit per se. But then again, also it's a dark comedy, and other films have tried to imitate it and rarely succeeded. And I think, like I said, that's the way it's directed. It's the way it looks. Almost everybody's very urbane, which is even worse when you think about it. But yeah, I mean, let's see. Yeah, I mean, right. So in other words, even though Greed, I mean, Greed is the same no matter what. But yeah, I mean, basically, you know, what I'm thinking about is the sets. I'm thinking about the actors. I'm thinking about the dialogue. I'm thinking about the fact that this is basically a tragedy set, and tragedy and comedy are very closely related. So, I mean, it's basically that point. And of course, I did want to know if he kept on living after that. But again, it's not to explain everything. And that wasn't the style back then. The style was to leave things unresolved, to leave it on a cliffhanger. And probably that's the way it should be. And like I said, you know, if it had been done probably by anybody else, it would have been either more gruesome or not as well written. And sometimes you just have to enjoy a movie for what it is. And, you know, I wasn't around in the 40s or the 50s or the 60s, even though I had heard of this movie. But like I said, the other funny part is you have so many famous people in it, and Alec Guinness, you know, in the 40s, 50s, he did a lot of comedies also, The Lady Killers, which they did an American version of, and Murder by Death, which was very funny, making fun of all the detectives, Agatha Christie type, Sam Spade type, You know, you have a lot of famous people in that movie, and it's still popular to this day. They have Peter Sellers, they have Peter Falk, they have all kinds of famous people, and Neil Simon is still around that wrote it. So, I mean, it's funny that this is one of the, you know, this sets up a lot of film history and even other histories from, you know, how it's written. So, yeah, I mean, I do like this movie.
Cool. I've got to say this. One of my favourite quotes in this is, "I shot an arrow in the air. She fell to earth in Berkeley Square." That is just a brilliant line. And also, you've got to realise, in 1949, for Alec Guinness to play 8 different roles, the makeup in this is just brilliant. And, you know, to age him as the vicar, to do him as the sea captain, the makeup, the Ealing Studios makeup on this, to age a 35-year-old guy, from to a duke to a Lady Agatha, it's just awesome work in this picture. For the time, brilliant. So, has anybody got anything else to say before we go to final scenes score?
Yeah, Alex said it was made in 1946. It was 1949. It was.
49, yeah. He's only a few years out.
Yeah, yeah.
Alex has got a time machine.
Yeah, one of the things that nobody's mentioned, of course, is Richard Wattis was in this. This was, I think, his 4th or 5th film. He's uncredited, but he played the defense attorney in the trial. And I think that his first real film credit was for The Happiest Days of Your Life, which was 1950. But he did about 5 or 6 films in 1949, sorry. And it was right at the beginning of his career, and of course Richard Wattis became a massive star. And he was starting all the St. Trinian's films, the originals, not the remakes that they've done. Yeah, brilliant stuff.
Well, I think also as well the judge in the House of Lords, was it Hugh Griffith?
Hugh Griffith, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, actor of the day. I mean, he was in nearly every movie going on, TV series and everything. But he always used to play judges and people of high standing. Yeah, very well known face. So, if we'll go to final scenes goes then, and seeing as Beef Dads are muted, we'll go to Beef Dad first.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. I've come to expect it from you.
As I say, piece of magic, brings back wonderful memories. Again, this is another one that brings back memories of my childhood, sitting and watching it on black and white television with my parents. It was great fun. This was a favourite film of my parents, and it's been in there for many, many years. Because you've got to remember, I was born the year before this was made.
Wow.
Yes.
Thanks, Alan.
So yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant stuff. It's superbly acted. It's superbly written. And actually, one of the things that isn't credited is that somebody did some work on the scripting of it that nobody really knows about. And it was one of the Mitford girls. It was Nancy Mitford. She did some of the checking of the scripts and everything. Yeah, so for me, I know it's black and white, but it's a 10.
Stephen Price. What say you?
Classic history movie. Loved the movie. The murders, the acting, the makeup with all the characters. Alec Guinness, it gets a solid 10 from me.
Thanks for that, Stephen. And without further ado, we'll go to those two people sat on the sofa.
Yeah, so I love it. I will probably continue rewatching this randomly. And let's see, for Alec Guinness, because he's so great, and because of the love story, because it's so great, and you know, the film itself is gorgeous. I mean, just beautiful. You know, it was right to shoot it on black and white because the the richness of it was absolutely, it was amazing. And you really got a lot of Jeopardy feeling in that last shot where he's shooting the current standing Duke. I mean, and the last shot of leaving the prison and having left a confession on the table. Wow, so much Jeopardy. And so I'll give it a 10 out of 10 too.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's many good movies and many good comedies that were around before Technicolor, before CinemaScope. I can think of the Marx Brothers, Alone Hardy, DOA, where the person gets poisoned and they have to track down their own killers. There's The Third Man, and there's also this movie. So not every movie has to be in color. And of course, Wizard of Oz is both. It's both black and white and color. So just because something's in color, it might be easier and more fun to see it on a TV set, but that's not necessarily the same to apply to movies. And like I said, I mean, it's written, it's an age old Greek tragedy, Shakespearean, type of thing. And he's murdering people for greed and his social position. And it's still relatable in a lot of cases. And, it's a very good movie. It's well written. The production's great. The actors are great. Like I said, the actors have done many different things after this movie. It is, I think Lee said that there was a message from one of the people that used to work at the studio at Ealing that you received on Twitter. So, yeah, some sort of message or picture. So, I mean, that's another thing that people don't realize now, especially now, since a lot of movies are very throwaway now and too many digital effects as opposed to story. The fact that, there's a lot of people working hard for these movies, no matter what decade, especially if it's a really good movie. And the studios and the producers and all that. Nowadays, movies are just make $1 billion or $1 trillion, and that kind of cheapens it. It's not that there isn't any good movies now, but they're very few and far between, and it's too many special effects. So if there was special effects here, I think it was the scene where all the relatives are together and the makeup of Alec Guinness. And considering that it was in the 40s, I'm sorry, of 1949, it's very well done. So you don't need, super special effects or 10 billion computer effects and still have a good movie. So I'm going to give this a 9 only because of how it was written, how it was produced. You've got actors that had a long history before and after. And that's also what movies should be about as well. It should be the whole package, not just how pretty it looks on the outside.
Thank you, Alex. Well, I'm going to use a word what Susan just used. It's a beautiful movie. It's even with the subject of murder. I mean, really should have been called The Beautiful Art of Murder. Good title for a movie, that. But yeah, Alec Guinness, do no wrong. Dennis Price, brilliant actor, as you say. Joan Greenwood, the little vixen is Isabella. Yeah, enjoyable, funny, classic, and this is why I like being in this group doing these sort of movies, because there's not many groups out there what will sit down and talk about 1940s movies, 1930s movies. We have a varied range, and we're quite happy sitting here doing that. From modern to silent movies, which we will be doing in a month's time anyway. We are going to do another silent one, but I'm giving it a 10. You can't fault it. It's a 10 for me. So I'd like to thank you guys for being here, putting up with us. Please leave a comment below if you know about the movie, if you've seen it, if you'd like to see it. Because we'll always tell you which cinema it's playing at. It's we've also got Facebook groups, Facebook pages, we're on Twitter, and if you would like to join our casts or our groups, you're more than welcome to, as long as you're 18 plus, got a working camera, and you get along with me. So, on that note, I will say, I'll bid you farewell until next time, and maybe next time Ali might be back. That depends if he's let out of prison. He's been, I know. I saw your face there, Beef Dad. But the court case came up, and they're putting away for a few weeks, I think. So I may be here next week. You never know, but he may be out. I can't tell you what he's done. He might be in the papers. So until next time, au revoir.